let's talk about something that I think every single creative person deals with, especially now. It's like this silent killer of our best ideas. We're going to dive into how our online habits, yeah, the scrolling, might be seriously getting in the way of our creative potential. And it really all boils down to one big question. What if that feeling of being stuck, that creative block, isn't because you're out of ideas or because you don't have enough talent? What if it's not about inspiration at all? What if it's that constant, endless fire hose of everyone else's polished, finished work that you see every day? Let's really get into this because the science behind what's happening in our brains is, well, it's pretty wild. Okay, to really understand this, we've got to look inside our own heads. We need to talk about a really powerful chemical that most of us honestly get wrong. This is what I call the dopamine deception. You know this feeling, right? You pop open your phone thinking, I'll just find a little spark of inspiration. But then, minutes, maybe even an hour later, you close the app feeling totally drained, inadequate, and you're somehow even further from your own ideas than when you started. It's like you went looking for a life raft and just ended up drowning in a sea of comparison. So here's what's actually going on in your brain. Every little ping, every notification, a like, a new view, a follower, it triggers the dopamine reward system. Now get this. This is the exact same neurological circuit that gets fired up when someone's gambling. It's this powerful addictive loop that's literally designed to keep you coming back for more.
And this is so, so important. We always hear that dopamine is the happiness chemical, but neuroscientists will tell you that's just not right. Dopamine is the chemical of wanting, of craving, of anticipation. It doesn't actually give you the feeling of satisfaction. It just promises you that satisfaction is just one more scroll, one more click away. It keeps you chasing that next little hit over and over again.
So over time, your brain, which is always looking for the easiest path, it learns this really dangerous lesson. It figures out, hey, I can get a much quicker, much easier dopamine hit from just passively scrolling and comparing than from doing the hard, messy, uncertain work of actually making something new. So the subconscious choice becomes super simple. Why bother creating when I can get a reward just by looking? Now, this chemical reaction, it's not just happening randomly. Oh no. It is plugging directly into a piece of psychological software that we have had for thousands and thousands of years. It's hijacking one of our most basic human instincts. Psychologists have a term for this. It's called social comparison theory, and it's basically a fundamental human drive. We are hardwired to constantly measure ourselves against the people around us. It's how we figured out our place in the tribe, how we learned to survive, how we knew if we actually belonged. It's a deep, deep part of who we are. But here's the thing. That ancient instinct, it was designed for a totally different world. For almost all of human history, your tribe, the group you were comparing yourself to, was maybe 50 people, tops. It was a manageable, realistic, sample size. And today your tribe is your social media feed. And it's not 50 people, it's 5,000 or way, way more. And it's not just random people. It's the most successful, most talented, most perfectly curated versions of people from all over the planet. Our ancient brain wiring just wasn't built for this. It's completely overwhelmed. And the results of all that overload is pretty predictable, right? It's that chronic, nagging feeling of being behind. And that feeling, it is pure poison for creativity. When your brain feels like it's threatened or inadequate, it switches into survival mode. It narrows its focus, and it shuts down all the playful, expansive, risk-taking parts of your mind, the very parts you need for new ideas to bubble up. So, we've got a chemical hook and an ancient instinct both working against us. Now let's look at exactly how this toxic combo actively kills the one mindset that's essential for any creative work. This really gets to the core of it. Real, genuine creativity is fueled by curiosity. It's that gentle, open-ended question, what if? But that dopamine-fueled cycle of comparison, it stomps all over curiosity and replaces it with a desperate, needy craving. The question completely changes from what cool thing could I make to what can I make that will get me the same approval they're getting. And this is where another brain chemical, serotonin, comes into play. You can think of serotonin as the calm, content chemical. It's associated with that feeling of just exploring something for the pure joy of it. But when dopamine is running the show, your brain shifts gears. It goes from that state of joyful exploring to one of anxious performing.
You stop creating for yourself, and you start manufacturing things for an audience, constantly chasing their approval. And that leads to this pretty brutal realization. When you're creating from that place of craving and anxiety, you're not really making art anymore. You're just packaging your anxiety in a pretty way that you hope people will like. It's a performance. It's not a true expression. Okay, I know that was a lot of bad news, but here's the good news. We can absolutely fight back. And the solution isn't some complicated productivity hack. It's actually rooted in neuroscience, and it's way simpler than you think. It's all about embracing the science of silence. So let me introduce you to the hero of our story, the default mode network. This is a network of brain regions that lights up when you're not really focused on anything specific. When you're daydreaming or taking a shower or just bored, staring out the window. And neuroscientists have found that this network is absolutely critical for making those weird, unexpected connections between ideas. It's literally where our breakthrough thoughts come from. And just look at this. The data is unbelievably clear. When you are constantly feeding your brain new stimulation, like when you're scrolling through a feed, your default mode network just goes quiet. It gets switched off. But the moment you give yourself some cognitive rest, when you embrace silence or even just a little boredom, this vital creative network just roars back to life. So what does this actually mean for us? What's the plan? It really comes down to 3 simple steps. First, you have to disconnect. Put the phone down, close the laptop. Second, you just have to let things settle. Give your brain chemistry a break so those dopamine levels can come back to normal. And finally, and this is the best part, just wander. Go for a walk without headphones. Stare out a window. Let your mind do its thing. Here's the most important takeaway from all of this. We've been sold this idea that creativity needs more input, more inspiration, more stimulation. But the science shows the exact opposite is true. Your best ideas are not hiding in someone else's feed. They are waiting patiently for you in the quiet moments when you finally give them the space they need to show up. Which, of course, brings us to a very real, very conscious choice that we all get to make every single day. I want you to let this question be your new reflex. The next time your hand instinctively reaches for your phone, just pause, just for a second, and ask yourself, what do I really want right now? Do I want to consume what other people have made? Or do I want to start the process of making something that's uniquely mine? Because in a world that is screaming at us to move faster and consume more, maybe the most radical and creative thing we can do is the exact opposite. To disconnect, to let our minds breathe, and to give our best ideas the silence they need to be born. So think slow and create deep. Thanks for digging into this with me.